All right, now that all my holes are punched in the diamond, I am ready to start piercing the inside of the diamond out. So I am going to start, again, the right-hand corner and work my way counterclockwise. I mean, I guess you could really start anywhere, just making sure you go counterclockwise. But either way, I just like to start the right-hand side when I'm doing any project that just keeps everything consistent. So I'm going to take the bottom of that saw blade, I'm going to feed it through the top of the design, slide the design all the way to the top of that saw frame, place it in the bench pin. Make sure your design is hanging on, the bench pin. It's resting on the bench pin and it's at the top of the saw frame. That way there's no weight of it on the saw blade. And then I'm going to put my back of my hand on the back of the saw or the handle of the saw frame, put some pressure into it and tighten it, getting that tension on the saw blade, and tighten it real good. So that's complete tension, teeth are faced the right direction, all is good. And then I'm going to take, while it's still upside down, facing at me, I'm going to take some wax and just put it on the saw blade. Give it a little wax refresher. All right, and then if you noticed, when I picked it back up, I didn't pick it back up and let it swing all over the place, especially if the bigger the piece is and the heavier it is on here, it will snap that blade. I grabbed a hold of the piece, flipped my saw frame around, and placed it down on the bench pin, holding onto the saw frame the entire time. Then I'm going to hold as much as I can, and this gets hard. It's just one of those things you have to work around. There's no clamp. There's nothing that is going to hold it in place for you. You just need to get the finger strength up to hold that piece down. I'm going to hold it as tight as I can, at least with two fingers, 3 fingers if you can hold it down. And then I'm going to start sawing. Trying to use, even though that's a small part of the, I'm sawing a very small section of this, I'm still going to try to use that entire length of that saw blade. That way I get really good, clean, consistent lines. Especially the straighter the line is, you want to get as lengthy as cuts as you can. It will get you a straighter cut rather than small, choppy lines. Kind of like same thing as drawing. You try to get straight, consistent lines rather than lots of like choppy edges, unless that's what you're going for. All right, and so now I am sawing. This is what I was saying earlier in the hole punching video, is that I prefer to drill with a drill press all these holes and do the inside first before cutting out the outside, because now you can see I have less material to hold on to. But because we didn't have a drill press, this is what I have to do, and that's fine. We'll make it work. So I'm just going to be really careful. And as I get closer to my finger, I'm going to make sure that the bench pin is what catches my saw blade and not my finger. All right. I'm going to flip it around this way. And you can use, the edge there. And I'm going to go at a little bit of an angle. Kind of chisel some of that away. I'm not really cutting a new line. I'm just kind of chiseling some of that edge away. All right, so I do need to cut into here though. So I'm going to start cutting there. I'm going to come up. I'm going to come back. I'm cutting there. And I'm just going to clean up my lines a little bit. That way, if I can't get a file to fit in there, I'm doing a little bit of cleanup work with the saw blade rather than trying to get a file or sandpaper in there. And that's always a really helpful trick, just in general. Like, even if you have files, I sometimes just like to use that saw blade. Watch your fingers when you're doing this. I'm not cutting into the side of the metal. I'm just using it almost like a chisel or piece of sandpaper at an angle. And just trimming any of those choppy edges off, because they make me crazy. And I'd rather do it now than pull the saw blade out and have to do it later. And sometimes I do it later once I take the paper design off and I see my edges. I'm like, oh geez, and I'll go back and I'll rethread the saw blade through every single section and clean it up. All right, slide the blade or slide the design in there. Make sure it's at the top. Oh, and it's resting up there. And then again, hand at the back of the saw frame. Press into your bench pin, tighten. And again, if you want to add some more wax at this point, you can. Anytime you go to set back up and you want to add wax, that's totally up to you. Wax is like, it doesn't make or break the piece. It's just helpful. I mean, everybody has their opinions on using wax. I just think if it helps you, you know, add some, but don't go crazy and add it like every 5 seconds, because that's not necessary, and you'll get wax buildup. Like you'll get a wax dusty pile right in front of you. Not with this wax, the beeswax, as much as the blue wax will just become like a little blue dust pile. All right, I got that side, and I'm coming at these corners at different sides, almost like I'm coming at them like a triangle. I'm not trying to round the corner. These are too sharp of angles or points. If I try and round those points, I'm probably going to get really rounded points, and I want them to be pretty sharp and crisp so that it looks as much like a diamond as possible, and I don't have all these like funky little rounded parts. Which also, while I'm thinking about it, when you go to hole punch or you go to drill, no matter what you're doing, one of the rookie mistakes is to put your drill holes like in the corners, because I think a lot of times people think that helps eliminate maybe getting in that corner, or it's kind of like, maybe it's just like a natural instinct that we want to start in a corner. What ends up happening is if you put that little dot in that corner, that little dot kind of stays there forever unless you know how to fix it, if you know how to square it off. So always put your drill hole, your metal hole punch, whatever it is, in a more open area. It doesn't have to be dead center of your design, like so that you're so far away from the edge, but just don't put it in a corner or like right at the top of a line, because that's always, you can always tell a beginner's piece when you see a lot of dots, a lot of drill holes, or a lot of unless that's your intention, unless you're intentionally putting that into the design, usually you can tell it's a beginner's piece when you can see dot all over the piece. So just make sure that you put the, you know, wherever the drill hole is, that you can get rid of it. So for there, like I have another point there. So instead of trying to round that corner, I'm just coming at it from another angle. That way I get a nice sharp point on that edge. And some safety things, you know, I've been saying over and over again, you want to make sure that your fingers are as far away from the blade as possible, but sometimes, like right now, it's kind of impossible. So just be really careful, be close to the bench pin, but don't saw into the bench pin, because that's actually dangerous, especially if your finger's right there. If your hand starts cramping up, just stretch it out. If for some reason you do slip and cut your finger, I will say, and this is again a personal opinion, full disclosure, don't come after me if you cut yourself and say, you said it wasn't going to hurt. But typically, like when I slip, if I do slip and I cut myself with the saw blade, it stings for a minute. I just quickly get up, put everything down, try and breathe. I wash my hand off with soap and water, dry it off, and I put a Band-Aid on it. And because saw blades are machine cut, the cuts are pretty clean, that it heals within like a couple of days. But if it's anything really severe, you're gonna probably need, you know, medical attention. So that's up to your discretion. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just telling my personal experience is that I usually just wash it off, bandage it up, and keep on working. Don't just keep working with it cut, because you want to make sure that the metal dust isn't getting inside of there. Again, not medical advice, just letting you know what you can do if that happens. But for the most part, just try and avoid it and use proper safety. One of the things I usually discuss in the beginning of any sawing demo or class is be sure to wear eye protection. So if you don't have big glasses like I do that take up a good portion of your face and protect your eyes, then make sure that you are wearing safety glasses. So here's a pair that I keep on my bench, that are nice and big, that protect. It has a nose guard so that nothing's going to fly up in there. They also make pieces that attach to your actual glasses. So if you're like me and when you put safety goggles over top of your glasses, everything starts fogging, that becomes more dangerous. I think it becomes more dangerous if you can't see at all. So they do make attachments that go on the sides of your glasses. So for this part, I just went in. I went in at like 3 or 4 different points so that I could get a nice crisp, especially for such a small area. I want to make sure that those points are really crisp. I'm going at an angle so that I can tighten up those lines a little bit. Again, using that saw blade, almost like a piece of sandpaper or a chisel, just knocking off those uneven edges before I pull the saw blade out. And if you need to tighten it up a little more, I'll just do just a gentle at an angle like that. All right. I'll do a few more and then I'll stop the video, finish this up, and move on to the next one, filing. All right. So there we go. So you saw how long that took. Sewing does take a little bit of time, so be patient, be kind to yourself, breathe, make it like a meditative moment, and just try and enjoy yourself in it. Put a podcast on, put some music on, relax, and just saw away. And you'll have a pretty cool piece at the end. So I'll finish this up and then I will be back with another video for filing. Thank you.